Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Download at 2 o'clock UK time. We got a couple of things we'll discuss. Before we get into that, let's do some quick introductions. Adam?
Hi, I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner at DLA Ignite.
Lenwood, he got the memo about the blue T-shirt.
I'm Lenwood Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of Accelerate. I'm a U.S. partner of DLA Ignite.
We could tell by the lack of accent, Lenwood, that you were U.S. based.
Brandon.
I also do not have the Brit in me, and I don't cuss like they do either. I'm Brandon. I'm the founder of Photo Amplified. Adam, I have a word that just came to mind for you, but I can't say it because I'm American. And I get to spend time with these awesome guys and talk shop.
Oh, you just switched your camera off, Brandon. And Thomas.
Oh my gosh.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm one of the founding partners of Social Selling HQ and a very active partner of DLA Ignite Global.
So just before we're coming on, we were talking about Snapchat.
We were.
And the announcement that they lost, was it 25% of their market capitalization?
They did.
Yeah, they had a bad week, didn't they?
A bad day, yeah.
Yeah.
So who can explain what's happened?
So what's happened is that their earnings report was a little less than was anticipated, which in and of itself wasn't really the news, and it wasn't that dramatic, to be honest. It wasn't that big a miss with respect to the target. But what really happened is that the change with Apple and Apple's new rules around people being able to opt in or opt out of apps, as well as some of the adverts that are being run through those apps, has really hit their earnings, and they were the first ones to show it, and so that's anticipated to show in Facebook and Instagram and of course everywhere else with the same problem. And that's only the beginning, because next, as we all know, comes the devastation of the cookie debacle, which starts very, very soon. So with those things in mind, the market is looking at Snapchat and all the others to try and anticipate the extent to which their earnings are going to continue to drop.
Who knew, eh? So you give people the option to opt out of advertising and they take it. Wow. That must be a revelation to everybody who doesn't have a brain.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's going to be a massive change to advertising and people where they're putting their money in terms of advertising, and it looks like they're going to need to find something else.
And that's been true for a while. So that, as Adam so rightly points out, we've known that for quite a while. But I mean, I was in a meeting with a large global manufacturer this week, and in fact heard from their CMO out front and very proud of it, that they're doubling down on their paid advertising, and they're going to be putting more money in the budget towards that, because that's where they're going to get results.
Sorry, just say that again, Thomas. They're doubling down on their paid advertising.
They are doubling down on their paid advertising across their distributors and their reseller networks, and they're a global company. This is
because that's where
they're going to get their results.
Surely that's where people are opting not to see ads.
And when I asked, well, on the basis of what data are you making that amazing statement? And he said, well, we're getting, I forget what percentage he quoted on the basis of the current spend. So if we double our spend, we're going to get that much. And I said, well, isn't it true that percentage has been shrinking for years? Yes. And that's why we need to double down. Just an amazing conversation. And when I asked what other options were available, I was bluntly told there were no other options available. So I told this individual, as well as the rest of the executive team, in fact, there were other options, and that's why I was here. And that particular directive was going to be suicidal. But of course, suicide is a choice. So if that's the choice you're making, I'm not going to support it, but it's your choice.
Right. You know, I had a conversation this morning with somebody that, smaller business owner, but the conversation was, I think I'm going to hire a content marketer. I'm not going to hire an SDR. I'm going to hire a content marketer, and pretty proud of it, which, I get. And Lenwood, that was pretty awesome. Is that your coffee for the morning?
No, that was I left my phone. That was a phone delivery.
Perfect. In the conversation we had, as I said, I think you've got to look at new options, because you don't need a content marketer. You don't need an SDR. You need somebody that could, change the experience and be a little bit of both. Somebody that's going to create content to create conversation, but somebody that's got a sales focus and has a sales strategy to it as well. And it was like, what, why? Like it's just still such a foreign concept. And, that's our job right now, is we really got to shout that message, because people are hurting and they need us. And I don't mean to be like this, but they really do need us right now. And so we got to keep getting that message out.
Our friend Stephen Sumner once described advertising as a tax on the unremarkable, which I think is a lovely phrase for this. So Tim shared something with us, a Forbes article, and I'll just read you a little bit from that. Now, this is Facebook, but I think we can probably assume that this is true of all social platforms, and indeed all digital platforms. It says, qualify as a view on
what's a view?
So you're buying 100,000 impressions of your piece of advertising material. So to qualify as a view, it must be, in Facebook's eyes, greater than 0 pixels and greater than 0 seconds that it appears on your screen. So if the ad part loads just 1 pixel for just 1 refresh of the screen, which is for most screens 60 hertz, so a 60th of a second, then you're deemed to have viewed the advertising content. Now, if we just wind back a little bit and think, if you get to see, if I create an ad which is 500 pixels wide and 100 pixel high, and you get to see 1 pixel of that for 60th of a second, then you are deemed to have seen my advert. And then we wonder why we don't get any success with advertising. Well, I've shown it to 1 million people. It's thievery, isn't it? Absolute thievery.
It's actually, I'd go further than that. I'd call it fraud. So that's just fake news in that sense, and that's the danger. And because many of the key people in organizations still haven't figured out the damage that's being done, they're not taking the steps they need to. But like Brandon said, we need to be out there showing and talking to as many people as we can. And while my voice in that particular meeting wasn't seen as supportive and productive in that particular meeting because of the CMO in this case. In fact, the CEO got in touch with me later and apologized for the behavior of his CMO. Now, whether or not that leads them down the right path remains to be seen. But the fact is that is what's happening, and that's we need to do this.
Yeah, and that's the challenge right now. And I think this is a good conversation for us to have. And I think inviting more marketers in, because I've said that so much of over the last couple of years, so much of my conversations around our technology and our process has died when the marketers got involved. I had, and I'm going to say it was a deal because it was, but it was this great conversation going through a professional service organization, how we were going to help all of they were in the accounting, but if they were an accounting firm, lots of partners in the business that should be trustable people, trusted people that know their business, know their industry, they're experts. And we were building our platform that they would all have a voice, that they could create content and, share valuable insights with customers and future customers. And then we got down to the contract side, and some high, marketers came in. The CMO was not welcoming to it, but wasn't objecting, was just, kind of difficult. And then a couple of people from the CMO's team came in and just completely had a shit attack, to be honest. And the whole thing blew up. And one of the big things that they were saying is they can't write content. They should not be creating content. I'm like, wait a minute. These are
they being the salespeople you're talking about.
Well, they're accountants.
Okay.
They all need to right.
Yeah.
They all need to build their own book of business. So in theory, they are salespeople.
Yep.
And a lot of them are partners in the business. But the mark is and then this, of course, empowered the CMO to stand up and go, no, no, no. And the deal blew up. But here's the point to what Thomas said. We've got to really help marketers see that there is room for them, but it's got to be differently. And that hammer that they've carried for the last 10 years-ish about content marketing, the funnel, advertising, and all of that, it's, to Tim's point, as he always says, it's never worked, but at least admit now that it's broken.
But I think that if you wind back to the beginning of what you said there, you said that the platform that you were talking to them about enabled people to, what did you say, share good, engaging, empowering content.
Yep.
Now, the challenge that organizations have is that marketing, and this is a function of how marketing behave rather than the people within marketing. Marketing want that piece of empowering, educational, engaging content to be a brochure. And the reason they want it to be a brochure is because it's a very beautiful thing. It's beautifully photographed, it's beautifully written, and it's beautifully produced. And they want to use this as a distribution mechanism for their brochure. Now, the challenge is that every salesperson that we have ever spoken to, when we've said, has a prospect ever bought your product or service from a brochure? They say no. Okay, so how do they buy the product? Well, we have a conversation with them and we identify. A good point. Yes.
Good book.
We have a conversation with them. We identify what their challenges are and whether or not we can solve those, and then they go ahead and buy. Now, the problem, or the reality of that situation is it's quite labor intensive. You've got to have lots of conversations with lots of people, and often at an organizational level, what the organization is looking for is something that will be that silver bullet. We'll create a great campaign, we'll create a great brochure, we'll distribute that to everybody, and then the phone will start ringing. And that's just that's delusional behavior in the modern world, because we're not selling training shoes. If you are selling training shoes, then a glossy advert might well work. If you're selling a complex product, a product that requires the buyer to understand the minutiae of that product and how it helps them and the challenges that they'll have implementing that product, there's absolutely no way that it can be sold through that sort of mechanism. And until organizations kind of just suck it up and think, right, what we're selling is conversations and we'll see where the conversations go, then there's no chance of them getting out of the hole that they've got themselves into, I don't think.
Yeah. I think, Brandon, you raise a really good point, which is that what we have is this situation where social media and content is controlled by marketing. And as Adam said, all marketing want to do is they get, they just get caught up in the beauty of the brochure rather than actually trusting and empowering people. And trusting, empowering people to go online and talk in a language that the buyers want to understand. I've sold $1 million plus systems for 25 years, and it involves having conversations. It involves having trust with the salesperson. These are I was trusted to have a company car. I was trusted to go out and have meetings with senior CFOs, but I wasn't trusted to go on social media.
Well,
And the thing is that I sold the systems because I built trust with the person, and I won't build trust with the person with a brochure and sharing brochures on social media. It just doesn't work.
Well, when your buyer has questions, the buyer came and asked you questions. They didn't go ask the marketing department for the brochure content at that point because you had the relationship. I know this is a little philosophical and it doesn't do us a whole lot of good today, but we as companies globally screwed up when the internet first came about and we were looking at WWWs. It was natural to put building that digital brochure, which was a static website, in the marketing department. But as the internet matured and we moved into email and inbound marketing and SEO and all these things, it should not have been a marketing function anymore. That's a sales function. It's conversational, but because we left it in marketing, we shot ourselves in the foot, and we're having the wrong people generate the wrong conversations with the right people. And this is where we're at.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Brandon. And I think that's actually one of the biggest challenges is that as technologies evolve, as our behaviors change, we have to continue to change. And there is this mindset that, once we've done this thing, that's going to be how we do it for the next 5 or 10 years. And that is not necessarily the case, particularly in an environment that is changing as quickly as it is. So it's a very problematic mindset that you're seeing. In professional services firms in particular, inside, I'm kind of enraged by what you described, because it's the professionals that drive the business. If professionals are not having conversations where they're giving potential clients aha moments, they're not going to be able to get that business. That's the bottom line. I mean, in a professional services, whether it's legal, accounting, consulting, the person is buying your knowledge. They're buying your expertise. And when you tell an accounting professional, we don't trust you to have a conversation on social media with a particular customer, that is a shooting in the foot from a business perspective. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I was doing some research the last couple of days, and I was surprised to see that over the last year, marketing automation searches went way up. And that tells me that with the pandemic, and the need to move towards digital transformation, what I feared was happening is actually happening, which is people were behind in their digital transformation. So they felt like they needed to get into marketing automation. Everybody's doing marketing automation. I need a marketing automation tool. And that train has already left the station, and we're looking for a new train now because that train isn't working so much anymore. So it looks like we're going to see a lot more pain before we see a solution to these problems, because from what I could tell from the research that I did, there was a lot of investing in marketing automation over the last 18 months.
Can I pick up on what Gary said? So sorry, Gary, I think there's a slight change in terminology, which is I think people have moved on from a brochure, but what they're still creating are brochures or brochureware, because what marketing is creating is, in effect, when you say it's supposed to resonate, it doesn't. Yeah. And this buying persona, the problem with buying personas is that I, as a sales organization, am defining a person that I want to sell to. And personally, as a buyer, I think that's horrible. I think it's dirty, and I have to go and wash my hands afterwards, because it's and what we're looking for and what the research shows is that actually people buy people. I'm currently I've got a presentation in a week or so's time at a marketing conference in London, where we're using one of our clients as an example. And when they put brand related, business related brochure posts on LinkedIn, it gets no engagement, nothing, nada, zero. When they put posts which are human and show themselves as who they are, it goes off the scale. You can see it, post after post after post after post. Nada, 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 zero, zero, zilch, 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 off the scale. Zilch, 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 off the scale. The data is very, very clear. You know, you've got the cause and effect there, and that's the problem. People are putting out, it's still brochureware.
Yeah. So I think our role then is, I thank you for all that, Tim. And I was just starting to comment to Gary to say something similar, but I think our role then is, and again, I had a conversation earlier this morning with someone that said, basically, you know, I see more, he goes, like, LinkedIn's getting broken. I said, oh, great. What do you mean by that? And it's like, well, I'm just seeing all this stuff that's like, you know, oh, my cousin's in the hospital and da-da-da. Like, that doesn't belong on LinkedIn. And, you know, the way we all think, I'm sitting there going through it. And there was a complete disconnect from a post that was highly engaging and how that is conversation starters with a much larger audience and the value of that.
And that's the difference, Brandon, which is that what you'll see probably in 90, even 100% of the time is that they're posting something because they feel, you know, the sales leader has said, well, you need to do social, and nobody knows what that means. So they go on and they post something. The important thing is whenever you see somebody who's posted that, say, what did you get? How much revenue did you get? Because what people need to be doing is connecting their usage of social media with revenue, profit, EBITDA.
Right.
And the only way that you're going to get something from that is to have a methodology how to harvest that engagement to allow you to build conversations. And I want to come to a point for Gary. If your salespeople are not generating content, they are so far behind. I am sure they are probably not going to catch up, because I write blog after blog after blog. It's all on my LinkedIn profile that proves with data, with case studies. I put one out even today about how people are using content as a way of creating conversations and creating sales.
Yes.
Salespeople, if they're not, you know, I talked to people, what did you do this morning? I just spent whole cold calling. What did you get from it? Nothing. So why did you do it? Well, I'm told to do it because I'm a sales leader. So what are you doing now? Well, I'm going to spend the rest of the time social selling. What are you going to get from it? Oh, I should get a couple of meetings. So, like, why are you wasting time using legacy sales methods that don't work when you've got clear blue water, but with things that actually work?
We've answered our own question, Tim. The fact is, the CMOs are throwing up false data and information to the executive teams on likes and shares and things, because they've turned the physical brochure into a digital brochure, and they've created some digital content that's still all sponsored and corporated up, and it's all corporate spam, and they're getting likes and shares or activity that they're showing that is a false narrative, and they are showing the leadership team that this works, so we need to throw more money at it to get more results, not allowing and taking a look at the fact that the sales team is languishing because nothing coming from marketing works. And the sales team doesn't know what to do. So I hate to say this, but at the end of the day, and Brandon made the point, the CMO is the problem. That is the challenge. Now, having said that, the CEO needs to recognize that, and so does the board, right? So that needs to be recognized for what it is. Do we need to help CMOs? Absolutely. And do we need to get this message? Absolutely. But in some cases, the CMO needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to...
Yeah.
Can I propose this for us? So number one, Tim, I love how vocal you've been today, because you usually kind of let us go, but I appreciate you stepping up and getting really in there, because of your experience with this, and people need to hear your voice in it. But the second thing I would say is I propose to, the 5 of us and the rest of our partners that we've got to figure out a better way, I think, to have this conversation, because us coming in and saying the CMO is creating false data and doing this stuff, I don't think it's helping our cause. I don't know if it's helping companies to see. And hear me out. I think we're right. I think we could say it a little bit better, because here's the thing. I don't think marketers realize or intentionally doing what they're doing. They bought into inbound marketing. They bought into content marketing. And this is what has been preached and told. It's almost cult-like within the content marketers that this is what you do. And we're at a pivotal point of trying to get them to see things differently.
I think you're right. There are billions of dollars being spent basically confirming things, but what they're confirming is basically interruption and broadcast. And while you get people saying I'm into content marketing, what they see content marketing is interrupt and broadcast, because we've been doing interrupt and broadcast for over 100 years. Cold calling's is 40 years old. Email marketing's 30 years old. What do? I ring someone up. I basically interrupt them and I broadcast them with my message. And if you look at LinkedIn, most of it, 90%. I mean, we've got a client as a CEO. He said, was it 90% of the content on LinkedIn is bollocks? And he was quite right. It's a quote, so I can say that. And the thing is that most of it is just interrupt and broadcast.
I think
because we're great.
Yeah, I think the thing is that I don't believe for a moment that marketing directors are fabricating information. But what I do believe is that they're looking at the wrong thing. So what they're doing is they're saying, well, the key metrics that have worked in the past are we increase the number of emails that we send, we increase the number of views that we get on our content, we maximize the amount of click-through that we get. And actually what needs to happen is they need to stand back and look at it and say, actually, are we generating more revenue by doing this? Because a lot of those interim steps are actually pointing in the wrong direction. As more people send more emails, you too have to send more emails, because more emails end up in spam. So your share of emails being sent goes down as everyone else's goes up. So you need to stay in time with those people. And often, salespeople are past marketing qualified leads because somebody has been onto the website, has entered their details, has downloaded a white paper because there's some insight in that paper that they're desperate to get their hands on. And the problem is that they're not a buyer. They were never a buyer. Marketing thinks they're great because they've engaged with this beautifully crafted content, but they were never likely to become a customer of the product or service. And the problem with this is that then the people at fault are sales. So I gave you a fantastic lead. This person downloaded 4 white papers. They're really in love with our product and our brand. You couldn't close it. Yeah, but they weren't in love with our product. They were the intern that's studying for an MBA, and they wanted
all the time because I use I'm on their website looking for because I write blogs and I'm looking for their research, and I get contact by HubSpot all the time. You've been on our website 4 times. You obviously want to buy. No, I don't.
Yeah,
I will never. The fact that you're badgering me,
I like your blog.
I will never buy HubSpot.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, isn't it? And what needs to happen is that, marketing and sales need to move closer together. Marketing needs to help the individual salespeople produce that micro niched content that is going to truly engage their buyer. So, if your salesperson that's responsible for talking to plastics extrusion companies in Michigan says, Mr. Marketing Director, I would please like a piece of brochure which references this particular vertical in this particular industry, the marketing director says, I haven't got time because I've got 500 salespeople. All of them want this micro niche content. So the way you deal with that is that you give the salespeople the education and the empowerment to be able to create this content themselves. Will it be as polished and as slick as what comes out of the marketing department? No, it won't. But actually, that whether it's polished or slick is not the issue. It's whether or not you have sent me something that I can be bothered to read. So, you know, when you go onto Facebook, when I see an advert that says, "Are you a man? Click here," I don't click it because it's not personalized. When I see, "Are you an overweight, middle-aged, bald bloke who's a little bit annoyed with what's going on in the world at the moment? Click here," I do click it because I know it's absolutely speaking to me. So when I offer you up some content that says, "Yes," I mean, I got a connection request from somebody on LinkedIn today saying, "Can we connect, please? I help authors write books. I can guarantee that you'll write a bestseller in just 8 weeks." You know, oh no, we were already connected. That's right. It was a message. And he said, "And as a first level connection, I just want you to know that I really appreciate you being connected." And I said, "You don't appreciate it that much, because if you had, you would have read my profile and see I've already written 2 bestsellers, neither of which were self-published." So at the end of the day, you know, what people need is they need to get this thing where they look at it and they go, "That was created for me." And the only person that can do that is the salesperson that's going to be meeting them. So then the salesperson can say, "Right, I'm going to meet Lenwood. This is the area that he works in. This is where he lives. I will create something specifically for him, so he thinks that I've taken the time and trouble to do that." And then when we speak, it's likely to be a conversation around, "Oh, your daughter's fishing. Oh, that's fantastic. I really love that, because I'm trying to teach my kids to fish at the moment." And we're building a relationship from stage one. But this requires the centralized functions of a business, so marketing being one of them, to realize that it needs to vest control. As Tim said, you know, he was given a company car and given the right to go and speak to senior people within a company. So he's given trust already. You need to trust him to be able to go and do his job. And part of that is about creating content. And we know that the clients that we work with, where people have, the individuals have really embraced this, they say things like, "I have never been so in control of my pipeline as I am now," because they absolutely know not only is this person 27 days in and it's about to go into qualification and negotiation, or past qualification and go into negotiation, they know, actually, this guy really likes me. And even if he can't close it, he'll find another route for me to get this deal done because he wants to work with me. And that only comes from having that relationship. And this is the mechanism to create those relationships at scale.
Yeah. Adam, you said a lot there. First of all, I as always, am learning from all of you. And I mean, there was a lot that you said there, but what I really pulled out of that is that you won't know whether the person that you're engaging with is a buyer until you have a conversation with them. You need to
absolutely
have a conversation with them to know that you solve and they're interested and they'd be interested in buying your product. Like, you actually have to speak to them. And the interesting thing about it is, in the startup world, when you're doing the market development process, that's what they're saying that you need to do. You need to actually get out. They call it getting out of the building and talking to your prospect.
But the elephant in the room is that, and it was the comment was made earlier by somebody here. I'm not sure who said it, but that salespeople aren't writing, and they're not putting up content, right? And marketing is. So how do we get those two groups to come together so that marketing can provide sales with a template that they can build on and add their commentary and make it easier for them in a way that they can actually do the things that we're talking about? Because this all sounds wonderful, but at the end of the day, salespeople aren't doing this. That's the reality.
Marketing needs to be
acknowledgement that there's a problem, doesn't there? So
marketing needs to be front and center of this.
As to sales, they both need to say what we're currently doing isn't working the way it used to work. You know, we're seeing it declining. We're seeing declining conversations. We're seeing declining engagement with our content. We're seeing declining visibility in the marketplace and declining sales. We need to do something different. So simply digging your heels in and saying, well, we've got more views on our content, or I've made more calls, actually is not solving the problem, because it didn't work last week or the week before or last year, and it isn't going to work next week. And I think an acknowledgement that, you know, this particular methodology for doing things has reached the end of the line, and people need to choose a different line to get on if they want to continue on their journey, is a fairly crucial realization. Now, people need to be brave enough to say, okay, I should have changed course 5 years ago or 2 years ago or 3 months ago, and I didn't. but I realize I need to do it now. So what's the best way forward?
So marketing need to be front and center of this. And I agree with Gary's comment there that for most cases, templates don't work. And you'll be called out and you know, and so but what marketing need to do is that they need to empower the salespeople, in fact, the whole of the organization, to create content, because what the organization needs to be doing is showing its culture across the whole of the organization out into the open world, because every single department will be impacted in terms of the grand resignation. Every sales is impacted in terms of pipeline and closing deals. So everybody should be empowered to do that. They also need to be making sure that they're empowering people from the get-go. So from the new starters, they need to be talking to the salespeople and the whole of the team about the keywords they need to be talking about. They need to be talking about suggesting ideas to them in terms of the content, not template, but giving them ideas, because that's a way of getting people up and running and started. And the other thing they need to do is they need to be measuring. There's a whole different type of leading indicators that we can now be running our business on. So in the past, what we were having to do was that we were having to run our business based on the hopes and dreams of the salespeople within the CRM. So, you know, in the corporate past, we made decisions, investment decisions, based on what was in the CRM and what the views were, what the items were in the CRM. Now you can actually get far greater insight into the business far earlier. So you can see how the salesperson is growing their network, because you can measure that. It's freely available on LinkedIn. You can see the views that the salespeople are getting, the engagement they're getting. You can find out from them the conversations they're having. So there's a whole measure that marketing need to be involved and can get involved in, and they need to be front and center of that.
Tim, I love it. I love it. So what you're saying is that marketing needs to get out of the technology business and into the people business.
Yeah,
they need
I like
to
it.
be empowering people across the organization to get social, to right, to communicate with their counterparts or their prospects or their recruits, whoever they happen to be, and share what they do and what the organization is about, so that they can build relationships and create a community around the company.
Yeah, but what I'm not saying is that people create content which is just a whole load of noise that's going to go on LinkedIn around the buy my product because we're great. I see so many salespeople posting what I call brochures, but it's basically brochureware, which is, you know, gets absolutely no engagement. The whole point of creating content is to get the engagement. And the reason why you get the engagement, the reason why we run this, is basically to get conversations with people. People come in, people hear our expertise and our insights. They comment, they go, oh, that's kind of interesting. They check out who we are, and then conversations start. And that's what the salespeople need to be doing. You know, just today, I show the example of the post that Eric put out that got 6 C-level meetings, 2 proposals and 1 purchase order. And it took him 10 minutes to do. Now, there's not one demand gen activity that you're doing out right now, cold calling, email marketing, or advertising, that can get you 6 C-level meetings in 10 minutes. It's just not possible. And so people need to be focusing on what they can actually do and what they can achieve, and get using something that's far more efficient and effective than using the methods that basically don't work anymore.
Great, brilliant.
Sorry, did I bring my soapbox on today?
No, it's awesome.
Tim, it's awesome. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I would just add to that I think that there's still a challenge that we play a role in helping, both on the marketing side, and I agree marketing is part of this process. I don't know that they're the ones that should lead it. I might disagree there, because the CRO or the VP of sales has a role to play in there as well, and they're responsible for that sales team, and they're responsible to see to it that sales is doing all those great things that you're talking about. Today, the reality is that sales team is not doing that. They are not doing that. They are not writing content. They are not on social media. They are not doing these things. And we need to play a role, as Adam so rightly put, whether you call it marketing or something else, doesn't really matter. But we need to play the role to bring these talented folks together so that they can accomplish the end goal, which is to drive the online presence of the organization, create engagement, and talk to customers. Whoever thought?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really bothered about whether it's the CRO or the CMO in terms of the, I mean, the CRO this term, is quite new, and therefore the creation of revenue is important. But the CMO obviously needs to be driven in terms of, they shouldn't be driven on terms of how many email get open. They need to be, so if you've got an email marketing system, what's it doing in terms of creating revenue and profit for this organization?
Yeah, and we're kind of back in that place where we get to that person who's in a position to shut the conversation down before really being open to receiving some new information and considering, what you're saying, Thomas, which is that there is a new way. We've got to change in order to get the results. And so long as the CMO is protecting a fiefdom, if it happens to be the CMO, it could be somebody else, and not thinking about how do we get results for our organization because of ego or whatever the reason, we're going to continue to have a problem. The best thing that we can do is what we're already doing, which is continuing to share the information and influence people around the CMO to consider something different.
So Adam, can I get you to answer a question for me, please? So it was one that Helen McKenzie basically put up a couple of 20 minutes or so ago. Could you answer that for us, please? Because we get asked that a lot.
Yeah. So, well, I think there are two things going on here. The first of them is that no matter how passionate you are about your product or service, there are other people in the market that are selling the same product or service to you. So the fact that you think yours is best, there's no guarantee that the other people who are selling other competitive products don't think theirs is best. So the idea of putting a brochure out in the marketplace as if it's going to affect somebody's opinion is optimistic at best. And I think that what we all need to recognize is that we are all responsible for our own personal brand. So the bigger the footprint that you have, the more credibility you have, the more helpful you are seen as being, the more valuable a sharer of great content you are, the more your visibility increases and the trust for you increases. And at the moment, you might be working for company X, and they benefit as a result of you being famous and having this huge footprint. If you've got 20,000 followers and loads of engagement on your posts and your content gets seen by 50,000 people, well, if I blend that content that gets that sort of visibility, if I blend that with my own personal content to further raise my visibility and my company's content, then that's great, because I don't alienate any of those people in my audience, and the company gets a ride in front of these people on the value of my content. So it's all about our own personal brand. What do you as an individual stand for? What do you want to be famous for? What do you want to be known for? And the fact that on the back of that, you're working for company X, that's the value that company X has. That's the value they get from you. So often we see, particularly your area, Glenn, with the legal sector, lawyers are hired, and part of what they're hired to do is bring a book of contacts with them. And that's true of any organization. If you can pick up the phone and speak to 1,000 different CROs because those people know you and like you and trust you, then you're an incredibly valuable resource to whatever company hires you. Now, the company obviously has to make sure that you stay. So they have to reward you and empower you and make you feel part of something more worthwhile than just somebody out there selling a product or service. But for your audience, if your word is your bond, if you stand up and say, you should buy this because this is a really great thing and I'm really 100% behind that, if you've built the equity with that audience, they'll believe that. And I think, so often we see people talking about creating content that resonates with the audience, and we have to put something which positions our product as the thought leader in this marketplace. That's all just words. You know, we want to create some content that resonates with our audience. No shit, really? We all want to create content that resonates with our audience. It ain't that easy. And anybody who puts a post out there about their company, what your company does, and sees it fall flat on its face, knows that the fact that you've built trust with your audience and the fact that you have a big network is no guarantee whatsoever that it will resonate with them. And even if it does resonate with them, that they respond to it. But I think that the really important thing is that we need to understand what we're trying to measure and what that is indicative of. You know, if you post something and it's seen by 200 people and nobody likes it, doesn't matter how well written it is, you can assume it's not a very good bit of content. If you post something and it's seen by 100,000 people and 500 people like it, then it is a good bit of content, because people are voting with their feet. You know, they're dropping a like on it and a comment on it, and that is the thing that is the only measurable thing that is a determinant of whether or not the content is good or bad. And I think that what we need to get away from is people embedded in this idea that it's a nice picture, therefore it's a good bit of content. The thing that determines if it's a good bit of content is, does your audience like it? So when we see these people going, oh yeah, but that doesn't belong on LinkedIn. Why? Because that got 5,000 likes and your post didn't, is why you're saying it doesn't belong on LinkedIn. Because 5,000 likes, as we all know, is 5,000 people that you can reach out to and say, thank you for liking my post. Do you want to have a chat? And if you sent that to 5,000 people and only 10% of them say yes, then that's 500 people that you need to have a conversation with. 500 people that you can forge potentially some sort of relationship. 500 people that you absolutely know if you go forward with them, they're going to notice every piece of your content and are much more likely to like it in the future. And those people might be able to help you to sell something into their company or the company of other people that they know. You know, this is like the old-fashioned business breakfast, but with an infinitely large audience. You know, this is perfection, but people have to stop getting in others' faces and pitching stuff and start to be honest and open and saying, you know, I'm what's on offer here. Like me or loathe me, this is what you're going to get. And when people get it, I mean, I don't think we have ever had an example since we started the business, have we, Tim, where somebody has followed this methodology, this way of thinking, and hasn't been successful. Obviously, there are challenges. There are challenges not just in doing it, but in keeping doing it. And that's often the biggest challenge for people. But when people do it, they never don't see success, in my experience.
So IBM have how many Twitter followers did you?
531,000.
Okay, and how many employees do they have?
366,000.
Right, and in terms of the engagement that IBM get on Twitter is
nothing. Every one of us gets more engagement than IBM does on their posts. And you know, when you look at IBM on their LinkedIn page, they've got, I think, 11 million followers. I rarely put out a post that doesn't get more engagement than the post that IBM put out that day. And it's not because I'm better than IBM.
You've got less than 11 million followers, I'm guessing.
It's ever so slightly less, yeah. And it's not because my content's necessarily better than IBM. It's because my content is from me. And everybody has that audience that are predisposed to like them because of who they are. Whether that audience is 500 or 5,000 or 50,000, it doesn't matter. There are some people that have to listen when you speak because they love you. And actually mobilizing those people is the great value in this. And for IBM, you know, if you think about their Twitter numbers, they've got 366,000 staff. They've got 500,000 Twitter followers. If each of the staff opened a Twitter account and was just followed by the people that they went to college with, they'd have it could just be 10 people that they're still in touch with. That's 3.5 million people who you know are actually going to listen to them and like them. That's a much more powerful route to market than through the corporate route. And but that's really scary for marketing departments, isn't it? Because it's about vesting control to the people in the organization. Control's already there, but at a sort of theoretical level, empowering these people to have their own voice.
So another question for you. Sorry, it's from Helen again. So are company pages a waste of time?
No, they offer a different value. You know, a company page on LinkedIn is like a website. You have to have one. You know, if you haven't got a company page, you're not a real company. If you haven't got a website, you're not a real company. So it's a box ticking exercise. But there needs to be the recognition that you create a company website or a LinkedIn page, but think about the company website. You create a company website and it says, our product is really good. You should buy our product because it's the best product on the marketplace. But you're not the only people saying that. Every company is saying the same thing, because nobody ever says, we're a bit expensive. We're normally 20% over budget. We're always late and we only work 70% of the time. No company ever says that. They always say, this is perfect. This is what you need. So none of it is believable. That's the outcome from that.
But it's so a company page, a website is important, but basically it's a test to see whether you've got a pulse.
Yeah, beautifully put. Yeah, it's your online brochure, and people will just check it to make sure that you exist.
So there's some research from Gartner, just so you know, while we're talking about websites, that humans spend 10 seconds or less viewing a web page, regardless of quality.
Excellent.
And if I can delve into some more Gartner research, is that when 76% of B2B customers do nothing after your digital experience. So the whole point of marketing is that what you're doing is you're creating action. So someone's going to see your brochure and they go, wow, that's amazing. I'm going to ring them and I'm going to buy them. And 76% of B2B customers look at it and do nothing. And that's because 64% of B2B customers cannot tell the difference between different companies.
Well, there was that famous research, wasn't there, a few years ago, where people took the 4 major UK high street banks and they stripped out the reference to the bank from every one of those. And then they put these 4 brochures or websites up side by side and said to people, which bank is which? And nobody got it right. And the reason
there's some research that I've shared before, which is great because it goes into a lot of detail and data, which is they analyze 10,000 websites and they all look the same.
Well, in fact, when we were in Canada on one occasion, Thomas may well remember this, that there was a company that was selling websites to its various clients, and with some pride, it showed us 4 clients that they built websites for. And I kid you not, the only thing that was changing was the words, the images, and the logo. Even the colors were the same. The design was the same.
They used the same WordPress template.
Yeah.
So another question from Helen. These are coming. Helen's questions are coming thick and fast here. So 0 engagement on the company page is okay.
It's not okay, but it's kind of inevitable. You know, you're not going to get much, whether you want to or not, really. Even we don't get much, and you know, we're pretty good at this.
Well, you know, I'd push back on that. The company page can be a powerful tool if it's used properly and in the way that we're talking about. It doesn't have to be corporate. There are people in that company, and they can engage with that content.
Absolutely,
they can bring it to life. So I would push back on that, and I would say that I've seen recently a big shift, both in terms of how LinkedIn is promoting company pages, as well as how some companies are starting to use them. And I think they can be a very good tool in the basket, right? It's one of the tools. It's not.
Absolutely. I mean, we've applied and got LinkedIn Live for the DLA Ignite company page, but it will be people from DLA Ignite that will be using that.
Sure. Yeah, and I agree. So it can be a powerful tool, but you know, I still think at the end of the day, we still hear companies that tell us they're all over social and they're doing all these things, but social selling isn't working for them, and they don't understand why is this not working for them. And I think that we've really hit upon that today because people aren't doing the steps that we're talking about.
Sales is a process. You know, from the beginning of time, sales is a process. And yes, there are people that think that sales is not a process, but most people will tell you that sales is a process. You work through and you do a number of things. You know, we've always had that person that's rung us up and said, I'm ready to buy. And then they don't because you actually didn't do the steps that work through it.
It's
the only way that you're going to get social selling to work is to be a process and a methodology. You do this, you will get this result. If you do this, you don't get anything at all. Now, the other thing that's different between digital and analog is that in the analog world, if you do 50% of what you do, you'll get 50% of the result. In the digital world, if you do 50% of what you need to do, you get 0 result.
Right.
You have to do 100. So what you do is you get a lot of people saying, right, I'm going to post a meme of my, this, this is what my sales leader looks like when I say I haven't got any forecast, and they post that, and then they get nothing from it. And the reason for that is that they're not actually going through the steps that they need to. They don't have a methodology and a process behind it to actually support the achievement of getting something and getting a result from it.
I had an epiphany today.
Fantastic.
I'd like to share. I find that a lot of our conversations, that when marketers are on it, or from our customers or prospective customers, when marketers, demand gen, and even some sales enablement people are on it, they often request a one-pager, or can you send me a PDF on that? And it just dawned on me, why they do that. It's because it's all the same crap they create all the time. And they actually believe that people consume it. And I was on a call earlier this week where somebody, we had a conversation, oh, this is exciting. Could you send us a one-pager on that? And I just said, no, I don't have a one-pager. But I've got a bunch of content that on my content hub that you can read about. I can send you several different videos where we've talked about it, send you case studies. Like, what do you need to make a decision? Do you need a one-pager, or do you need the information?
In my first startup, I remember the salespeople basically saying to me, we need brochures. And we had no money. And so I spent the equivalent of like $1,300 on 1,000 brochures, and they sat in a box at the back of the room. They were never ever used. But it's because the salespeople said we needed to have a brochure. So we made these brochures and wasted a whole lot of time, and no one ever used them. And so in terms of, I mean, it's a great idea having a content hub, something where you can actually say that this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what we believe in, and this is how we can help you. Not buy my product because it's great.
Why don't you
standing with something?
Why don't you create a one-pager, which is a nicely branded sheet, just with big letters across the front saying "Buy my product because it's great," and then you can, when someone says, "If you've got a one-pager," go, "Here you go." It's what every one-pager says. So I thought I'd give you this one, and hopefully they'll go, "Oh yeah, I see what you did there."
Oh,
so
I got to decide.
As we're coming to the end, so as a business, I'll just tell you a story about us. The story. Well, I think it's funny anyway, which is that we decided that our website didn't suit us anymore. We changed from just being a social selling company to being a social digital organizational transformation company. So we decided to change the website. So I was told it was only going to take 6 weeks to basically cut over between the two websites. So I said, for a laugh, because we basically said this in a meeting, I said, why don't we just put a holding page that says, this is DLA Ignite. If you need anything, ring this number. So basically, we cut over to that. 18 months later, I got the new website. But do you know, it made no impact at all on the amount of leads that we got on the business that we closed.
That's a great story. That's a bad story, but a great story.
now you could turn around and say, well, just think of the business you could have got, Tim, if you had a great website for that 18 months. Yeah, I would take that as a challenge. But the fact of the matter is, it didn't actually stop us as a business basically growing. Yeah, maybe we could have grown faster, but it didn't stop. And it was, and we'd actually said that to a client. So I said it as a joke. And yeah, 18 months we had that up. Didn't we, Adam?
We did. Yes. Sorry.
So
the reality is, it didn't actually make any difference, did it?
No.
So that's the story I tell the person that said, I'm going to go hire a digital marketer.
Yeah. Well, Eric, who can't be here today, but he would tell you the story that if you're going to hire that, you're basically, what you're doing is you're buying the sofa before you build the building. Because you don't do you have a strategy? No. So why are you hiring somebody to do a whole bunch of tactics when you don't have a strategy?
Well, they're going to figure it out. That's what you hire marketers for.
Yeah. So we know someone who's they've hired someone to basically to do social selling for them. They've hired somebody in, and when they named the person, we went to their LinkedIn profile, and that person who they were hiring had no. You could see from their LinkedIn profile they had no capability of social selling. They didn't show any sign that they knew anything about it.
I have
how long before that? So that business is going to take 18 months, 2 years before they realize they made a mistake. How far behind they're going to be? So far.
How much money did they waste?
Absolutely.
I had a demand
but it's been behind. I see so many companies that are so far behind, and then I don't think they're going to catch up. Anyway,
the story I was going to tell to support that is a demand gen SVP of demand gen who basically said everything we're talking about was rubbish. It wasn't going to work. And I will look and see, never post on social, never post. And then all of a sudden the post was, hey, LinkedIn community, I need help. I'm looking for who can you recommend? What do you know? And all of a sudden they believe in social because their back's up against the wall and they're not finding what they need. It's if you just stop for a second and think about your own behavior as a content marketer or as a demand gen person or as a CMO or whatever it may be, how do you buy? And what do you create for your buyers? And if they're not congruent,
people need to have it proven to them though. So some years ago, Tim and I were working with a client, and the chief exec of the client, who I shan't name, but even if I did, he wouldn't mind. He said, yeah, this is just self-promotion. It doesn't actually fulfill any real purpose. And we said, yes, it does. You'll see that it does. So he went onto Photoshop and he made himself a certificate of self-promotion. He then subsequently did one for us. But he did.
That's what he created for us.
Yeah, he did a certificate of self-promotion for himself, and he said, I'm doing a social influence course with these guys. It feels to me like I'm just promoting myself. So the next time we went in, we've got the fortnightly cadence when we go and see these people. And I say cadence,
you're not allowed to use the word.
It's a banned word in that company. So fortnightly cadence. And we went back in for a fortnightly cadence. And we went back in and said, so how did that post work out for you? And he said, I don't want to talk about it. Because he'd got 400 likes and a 4,000% increase in views to his profile that week. And at that moment, he just okay, I believe. 4,000% increase because he actually did something personal and funny and different.
Gentlemen, today was awesome, and I appreciate you, but I'm 3 minutes late for a meeting.
Thanks,
everybody.
Have a great day, guys.
We'll be here at 2:00 next week.
Bye.